Resonators have always been a bit of a mystery to me. I often gravitate towards core synthesis ingredients and didn't really have a grasp of what sounds I'd want from a resonator or how I'd use it if I'd have one. If you've been watching the channel, you know I love Xaoc Devices, so them releasing Oradea is a good opportunity for me to dive in and share my thoughts exploring the module. It can be used as a complex Waveshaper, create textured, plucky percussive sounds, work as an end-of-chain processor, and even function as a quad oscillator. There are 4 bandpass filters with control over filter frequency, peaking and level. Of course, there's CV control over all those features per filter, as well as an input to excite or ping each channel individually. But there's also an input as well as frequency and peaking CV input for all 4 channels at once. The main module also has a mixed output as well as 4 individual channel outputs. The expander adds manual and CV control mutes as well as individual signal inputs. Something I like about this module is that it feels like a clean and flexible workhorse tool. There are no added tricks or specific features that push you into using it in a specific way. The flip side of that is that the module feels quite open-ended and shines when it's part of a setup that has some power. In this video I explore the module in different ways, often starting with a simple concept and then expanding that idea to a more musical example. In its core, Oradea is a unique quad resonant bandpass filter. Here, Berlin is creating a simple saw wave. If I send that saw wave through a single resonator, you can hear it function like a narrow bandpass filter. By creating a mix of different filter settings and adding resonance, you can add complex wave shaping and overtones to the sound. So let's start by using Oradea like a complex Waveshaper or wavefolder. Here that's done by feeding all channels a single saw wave and sending the mix out through a low pass filter. The oscillator is sequenced and the filter modulated with a triggered envelope. Any modulation to the resonator creates animated waveforms. Here 2 LFOs are modulating the level of higher frequency channels, and a looping complex envelope is modulating the frequency of a mid-range channel. The individual channel inputs on the expander don't override the common input, so you can experiment with sending something like a white noise source to any individual channel. I like to show a lot of ideas in my videos, often with a single audio example, but each of them can be used in many different ways. Here's the exact same patch with a saw wave running through the resonator and filter with the same LFO and looping envelope modulation. However, a keyboard is used to control the oscillator and gate and ADSR envelope modulating the filter. To add good playable dynamics, the mod wheel of the keyboard is used to speed up the frequencies of both sine wave LFOs, and another copy of the mod wheel is sent to modulate the filter. The entire patch is sent through the Xaoc Devices Tallinn, used for a bit of nasty drive when hitting higher volumes. last patch got me excited for more. Here's the same patch, but again with white noise source, this time sent to the highest frequency channel. The master out is sent through a single looping delay to create long layered sounds. And finally, a clock is driving pattern-like clock divisions. 2 divisions are used to trigger the excite inputs and 1 to modulate the frequency. This adds nice rhythmic modulation to the patch. I want to show a slightly longer audio demo here. It shows how I find Oradea a creative tool that inspires new sounds and musical ideas. Adding percussive elements to audio is a great feature of Oradea, but I'll come back to that in another chapter. Resonators are often associated with pinged, plucky and percussive sounds, and for good reasons. In this setup, Oradea is used as a single percussive element with 4 layers. A melodic sequencer is used to create a pattern triggering a plucky envelope, sent to the input of all resonators. The 1 volt per octave can be used to modulate the frequency of all resonators at the same time. This creates one sound with 4 different frequency levels. Let's add a sequence. The layer texture and frequencies work great with effects, so I'll be using those a lot. Because all 4 layers work together to make one sound, you can modulate things like the frequency of an individual resonator to change the character. The level of resonator 3 is also modulated with an LFO, as well as the peak of all resonators and the range of the sequence for some variation. You can easily push the modulation into experimental territory. Here's the same setup with the quad resonator sequenced and triggered by a single source. However, the master clock is driving a clock multiplier and two different multiplications are used to excite two individual channels. This means these channels receive solo triggers on top of the mutual input. Self-modulation and an LFO are used to modulate the clock multiplication, creating ratchets. Two divisions of a clock divider are used to modulate the peak of two channels. A random voltage and LFO are modulating the frequency of two channels. And finally, another random voltage is modulating the speed of the master clock. Oradea offers individual outputs. Here only channel B is sent to the delay. Here's the same patch with all resonators set to mid frequencies. Of course, each resonator can be used as its own element, for example triggered with a quad pattern sequencer to create a 4-voice percussive setup. You can modulate things like the individual frequency or peaking with LFOs to add movement to specific voices. And because Oradea offers individual outputs for all resonators, you can process individual sounds with effects if you like. Using 4 resonators as 4 simple sound sources like this can be a bit underwhelming, so let me risk a more complicated patch. Here, the first resonator is used as a tonal rhythmic bass sound. A saw wave oscillator is used as its input and the output is sent through a low-pass filter to make a simple voice. A master clock is driving the entire patch, starting with the clock divider, sending a division to a sequencer tuning the oscillator, and another division to trigger a plucky envelope modulating the filter. A third division is used to trigger the excite input, adding a percussive element to the voice. On top of that, a second sequencer is added, controlling the frequency of this resonator. I quickly want to show what that sounds like. Don't worry about the rest of the patch, I'll explain that in a bit. This is the bass sound. Let's add a pattern to the excite. And the second sequence to the frequency of the resonator. The second resonator voice is used to create a percussive tuned element. It's driven by a clock multiplier synced to the master clock, modulated with a random voltage. This creates patterns with ratchets, used to excite the resonator. To create tuned variations, that resonator receives a copy of the second sequence, and its level is modulated with an LFO, so it swings in and out of focus. The third resonator is used as a melodic plucky voice. It's controlled with a third sequencer synced to a clock division, tuning the resonator with a 1 volt per octave and exciting it with the gate output. That resonator has its peak modulated with an LFO, and the output is processed with a delay synced to a clock division. And finally, the fourth resonator is used to create a high noisy percussive sound. A white noise source is sent to its input, and another copy of the second sequencer is used to create pitched noise variations. Exciting high frequency sounds doesn't create a plucky sound, so the output is sent through a stereo VCA, modulated with a plucky envelope, triggered with another clock multiplier creating ratchets. An LFO is modulating the stereo panning of that VCA. are a lot of subtle aspects to this module, and they all have impact on the sound in different ways. There's one in particular that I want to show, and that is feeding complex envelopes into the input. That's because the shape of the envelope has a big impact on the sound. Here, a complex envelope from Zadar is sent to the input of all channels. Listen to what happens when I scroll through a few envelope shapes. Let's add some envelope speed modulation to that. And some envelope shape modulation. This allows for all sorts of tonal and rhythmical variations. Here you see the resonator with a complex envelope and LFOs modulating the frequency and shape of that envelope, all adding depth without even touching the resonator. Let's expand that with the melodic sequencer triggering the envelope and sending a 1 volt per octave signal to all channels. 2 LFOs are added modulating the peak of channel 2 and level of channel 3. And the clocked quad pattern generator is used to send 4 simple patterns to the excite input of all 4 channels. Here's the sound of just the 4 excited channels. Let's add the complex envelope to the input. Here's a faster variation to that patch, with a different envelope creating a delayed plucky effect. On top of that, 2 additional sequencers are added. One to modulate the frequency of the 4th channel, adding a top percussive frequency with variable pitch. And one to modulate the 3rd channel, set up to add a melodic layer to that sound. That channel also has its peak modulated, so the length and presence of that melody fades in and out. Another more subtle but fun use of Oradea is an end-of-chain audio processor. The module can function a bit like you would use a fixed filter bank, but with more CV options to add interesting movement, textures and rhythms to sounds and voices. Here's that idea in a simple patch. A full single oscillator synth voice with a bit of envelope and LFO modulation is tuned and gated with a sequencer. That full voice is used as the input of the quad resonator. The mixed output of the resonator is used as output or sent to a mixer. But beside that, a clean copy of the voice is used as output or sent to a mixer as well. This means the resonator is used as a parallel processor, and you have control over the volume of both the clean and processed sound. Here's the Moog Mavis creating a dry sound. Let's listen to the processed mid sounds only. And with high and low. Let's add some reverb. And bring back the dry signal. Let's expand that setup a bit. To add some movement to the higher frequencies, 3 phase-shifted LFOs are used to modulate the level of 3 channels. The first channel is tuned the lowest, and that resonator is receiving a copy of the 1 volt per octave signal from the sequencer. This means it no longer picks out a very narrow band of frequencies, but follows the tuning of the sequence. To add some percussive elements to dispatch, 2 individual outputs of mid-frequency resonators are sent through VCAs and delays. A plucky envelope controlled with a clock pattern is opening those VCAs. The delays are panned hard left and right and used beside the resonator's mix out and the copy of the dry voice. Here's a variation with a complete synth voice used as the input for all channels. This time a voice is used that can be switched between SAW and modulated wavetable. The 4 resonators are set up to create a stereo parallel processor. Channels 1 and 3 are used at lower frequencies and sent to 2 mixers, creating a left and right stereo signal. Channel 2 and 4 are used at higher frequencies and sent to the mixers as well. A copy of the dry voice is used dead center. To add some depth to the stereo field, 2 random voltages are very lightly modulating the frequency of the 2 low tuned channels. And 2 divisions of a clock multiplier are used to modulate the level of the 2 high-tuned channels. On top of that, a fast division is sent to a panner, modulated with a random voltage, and used to excite either channel 2 or 4, adding a plucky stereo sound to the mix. And here's a quick variation with a similar setup. This time a triggered rising envelope is modulating the level of channel 1 and 2. And the copy of the main sequence is sent to the all frequency input, so the resonators don't pick out steady frequencies, but harmonics in relation to the tuning of the voice. The final thing I want to tackle today is using Oradea as a quad oscillator. Like most filters, each channel of Oradea can self-oscillate and create a sine wave. But just turning up the peaking isn't enough though. You have to self-patch each individual output to its own input using the expander module. But when you do, Oradea becomes a quad sine wave oscillator. Each channel can be overdriven very nicely. The level CV inputs are now a powerful feature. You can send one or more channels a modulation signal to create a shifting output mix. Make sure to attenuate the signals. Of course, you can turn the setup into a regular voice. Here, all 4 channels are receiving a mutual sequence, and the combined output is sent through a low-pass filter, modulated with a triggered envelope. Other CV inputs can be used to add complexity and movement to the layers. Here, LFOs are used to modulate the level of 2 channels in the mix output. Also, the lowest and highest tuned waves are sent through VCAs and on to modulate the frequency of 2 other channels for FM textures. The VCAs are modulated with an LFO and random voltage to create complex shifting sounds. This is the same patch, but a lot faster. And here I added a clock divider modulating the sequencer and different divisions turning the 4 channels on and off. could have easily continued this video, but I want to keep the length manageable. Ultimately, I really enjoyed exploring Oradea. Like I said in the beginning, it feels like a valuable workhorse module. I was a bit afraid of it being a one-trick pony, but it can easily be patched in different places and patches to perform different tasks. Beside percussive aspects, I like the wave and sound processing side of the module a lot. And to be honest, I still feel there are quite some sounds and ideas I haven't even touched on today. As always, have a look here if you'd like to learn more, hit that like, subscribe and bell button if you want to see more Oradea content from me. But that's it for now, thanks for watching and see you next time.